Hello, hi, and welcome to another edition of the Digital Arts Festival show. I'm Jim Sirianni, your host with the most. I have to say that every single time I'm contractually obligated. I'm going to run that joke into the ground all the time. This show is part of the Digital Arts Festival that is produced by Center Stage Theater in Santa Barbara, California. The Digital Arts Festival shows stream nightly at 7 p.m. now through April 30th. And you can find more on the Center Stage website, centerstagetheater.org, and click on the blog tab. Again, that's centerstagetheater.org, and click on the blog tab. The purpose of the Digital Arts Festival is to create an outlet for artists of all kinds to share their work. Because of the quarantine, because of the COVID-19 quarantine, many artists and performers very suddenly and very abruptly actually found themselves with no way to show their work or to perform. And in some cases, the work these creators have done may never be seen by the public, which would be a shame. So in an effort to find some sort of workaround, if you will, the Digital Arts Festival was created by Center Stage to help artists and performers connect with their audiences virtually. We will have dance, theater, music, film, visual arts, poetry, storytelling, and much more. And again, you can learn all about what's going on with Center Stage and the Digital Arts Festival on their website, centerstagetheater.org, and click on the blog tab in the upper right-hand side of the homepage. So today's guest is Joan Rosenberg-Dent. Joan is a sculptor working mainly in porcelain and mixed media. She received her Master of Fine Arts degree at Cranebrook Academy of Art. Joan taught at many universities, including Pennsylvania State University, University of Michigan, and was chairman of ceramics and glass at Ohio University. She currently serves on the Dean's Advisory Council, School of Art and Design at the University of Michigan. Her work is in several permanent museum collections, including Renwick Gallery of the Smithsonian Institute, UC Santa Barbara Special Collections, Ridley Tree Cancer Center, and in many private collections. So at this time, I'd like to welcome to the show, Joan. Joan, welcome to the show. So great to have you with us today.
Thank you. Thanks so much for having me. It's a wonderful opportunity.
Well, we're excited to have you and to learn. For me, it's great to be able to learn more about sculpture. It's one area that I'm not that familiar with, but I'm excited to learn more about it. Let me ask you, how did you get started in sculpting? What was the beginning there?
Well, the beginning was not really the beginning that I wanted. It was the beginning my parents wanted. I always wanted to do something either in visual arts or performing arts. And I was a dancer all through junior high, high school, college, and I thought I'd be a dancer. Anyway, my father nixed it, and I became a teacher, and then I went back to school. I think if you have a burning passion, whatever it is, it comes out sometime or another. And my passion was to be an artist. And I fell in love with clay when I was teaching, and I was taking some courses at a community arts program. And for some unknown reason, I was juried into a show by Peter Volkas at the Detroit Institute of Arts very early on. And that just blew me away. I was with the greatest hero of all time, Peter Volkas. And he loved my work. And from then I said, I have to take this seriously. So I went back to school and got 2 more degrees. And I had to get another bachelor's of fine arts where I studied at the University of Michigan. And then I went on for my master's program at Cranbrook. And then I went on my way.
And then you were on your way from there. That's wonderful. Yeah. Actually, before we forget, and I just want to mention it, and we'll mention it throughout the show so people can jot it down. You do have a website, and your website is jrdstudio.artspan.com. And folks can learn more about your work there on the website. Again, that's jrdstudio.artspan.com. www.artspan.com. And of course, while you're watching this interview, you could check that out and, have kind of a interactive involvement with the show today. Again, that's jrdstudio.artspan.com. So, Joan, let me ask you then, how has your work evolved over the years?
Well, when I started going to school, it was or ceramics were taught from a vessel orientation. You learn to throw on the potter's wheel, to hand build forms. It was all about the vessel. And I wasn't totally enthralled with learning about vessels, but that's the history of ceramics. And I didn't want my vessels to be used for utilitarian purposes. There were enough bowls and casseroles and teapots out there. So I started filling the interior space with sculptural elements. And then I got so involved in the sculptural forms that were evolving inside, I thought, why am I even using the vessel? So I took these forms out and started freeing myself from the vessel, and they became sculptural forms. And I worked that way for many, many years. Some were from the floor up, some were tabletop, and my sculptures kept evolving until today, when I was thinking of more challenging ways of focusing my interests. And I said, what if I could put my clay on the wall? So I didn't even know how I was going to do it. But anyway, I did get to where I am today through the vessel form at the very beginning.
That's nice. That's wonderful. Now, I'm sure that these are behind you are some of your pieces that are on the wall there. Is that correct? Are these some of your pieces?
Yes, yes, yes. My pieces all start with a concept or an idea.
Uh-huh.
And from the idea, I abstract a way of sharing my idea. So visually, I try to make them visually exciting, as well as have a concept behind them. They're not just pretty shapes, but there's a reason for the way they are. So this piece right here, can you see it?
Yes.
This was called Hugs and a Kiss. It was,
Oh.
I
Oh,
was
I
feeling
get
very
that.
loving. Yeah, Hugs and a
Yeah.
Kiss.
And
And
a
I
kiss.
enjoy putting opposite elements together, the black with the white, all the circles with the 1X, because it forms a tension between the pieces. The whites become whiter and the blacks become blacker. And you can see that my pieces are porcelain, and I'll tell you about why in a minute. This piece over here, all the pieces move. I don't want to make a lot of noise, but they all move. And it's called dangling concepts, not
Oh,
participles, dangling concepts.
I
And
like that.
the interest to me of this piece is that in the studio, I noticed there were certain shadows created on my table when I laid it out. So I put the panel down, painted it white, and saw these shapes, and took a graphite pencil and drew the shapes of the shadow. Then when I took it and hung it on the wall, I had different shadows. So I had my graphite shadow, then I had the shadow from the way it was being lit, and then I had the piece. So there, I created depth in the piece. Shadows always, light and shadows finish my piece for me. So that that piece is significant because it has so much depth to it.
Yes, I can see that. Wow, that's amazing. And it's interactive. You can play with it.
Yes, you can. Yes, you can, and it makes noise too.
Right.
So I'll
Yes.
tell you a little bit about the porcelain concept. Why I'm even doing all these porcelain pieces. I started off when I was at this community college. My first pieces that got into the Detroit Institute of Art show happened to be porcelain, and I was using porcelain because I could work so thin with it, and it would have a lot of strength. A lot of clays don't have the strength, even when after they're fired. But the porcelain particles are so tiny that when they fuse together, there's no more airspace. They're so tight. So you can work really thin and do very elegant shapes. So I
Oh,
started to use porcelain because of that. And the other main reason for me continuing is that porcelain allows light to go through it. It's translucent.
right.
So I also get depth in my pieces because of the translucency of the porcelain. If I were to glaze and sugarcoat my pieces, they would no longer be translucent.
Ah, I see.
That's
Oh,
why I I say that I work in naked porcelain because nothing after it's fired, that is it. It is what it is. And I like the minimal aspect of it, of just doing it, being spontaneous, and that's it. And not fixing and playing and da da da. I like the immediacy of the material. So those are some of the reasons. And I guess the last reason must be I'm obsessed with white. I've always loved white. I usually always dress in white. I've ever since I was a child. It's just
oh,
something
interesting.
in me. I relate to white.
Nice. Very cool. Wow. So that's amazing. The way that the porcelain works. And so tell us about, I understand I was watching one of your videos earlier. Tell us about your pieces that are inspired by dance.
Oh, I love dance. It was my first love. And when I went to the University of Michigan as a freshman, Martha Graham would come and do master classes. And my whole background was ballet, classical ballet. So I was stuffed into these tight toe shoes with bleeding toes all the time and tight clothing and tightly choreographed pieces. And Martha Graham came in. Didn't even know who she was. I was just very new at this. And she came in with flowing black draped dresses and her cane and barefoot. So you could dance barefoot. It was just such a concept to me. It was so freeing. So Martha Graham has played a big pivotal role in my part. She has freed me from thinking you can only do something one way, that you can be free, you can express yourself. It doesn't have to be choreographed. And that's exactly how I work today. So when I started thinking about pivotal times in my life, and that's why I started with this dancer that I call um, Dancer Inspired by Martha Graham. And before I knew it, I had lined my shelves with different positions, big ones, small ones, black ones, white ones, some even with colors. And I couldn't stop. I was so enthralled. And today, people come to my studio and they choreograph their own pieces. I clear my work table and they take pieces off the dancers off the shelf. They might take 3 or 5 or 7. They could take big ones and small ones or black ones with white ones or all the same color, whatever they choose. And they usually stay in the studio a couple hours until they choreograph their piece. And I love the interaction with my work and it becomes their piece too. So I do love collaborating with people. I've done a lot of collaboration, several, and with other artists and just in my studio with people that collect my work.
Oh, wow. Well, that's amazing. I love that story of the of people coming in and collaborating with your work like that. That's so amazing. And so I understand that you prefer wall pieces, but what is it about wall pieces that you're drawn to as opposed to pieces that stand on the floor or the tabletop? What is it about wall pieces that excite you?
Well, the exciting part for me is number one, it's a brand new challenge. Number two, I can get as big as I want because my pieces are all fabricated individually. And then I can add and add and add. They can be 30 feet long, or they can be small, whatever. And it gives me so much more freedom than a tabletop sculpture. Now, porcelain goes from, it's kind of like Philadelphia cream cheese. It's that kind of material when you start, and it goes from that to crunch. And I work thin, so in 5 minutes, if I haven't done something with the form, it's too hard and it breaks. I try to curve it and it cracks. So you work very rapidly. And
Oh,
so you can only get so big with porcelain because it's like this cream cheesy, soft, malleable material, and it just shrinks down with the weight. It won't hold the weight up. And
oh,
you can only go so big with porcelain. Even if you let it harden up a little and add to it, you have trouble with cracks because they're different consistencies. When I do these wall pieces, they're all individual, and I can go on for days and days and days and make each piece and fire as many as I want at a time and continue on. So it gives me so much more freedom.
oh, wow! Much more freedom with the creativity and with your ability to come up with new pieces. Oh, that's an amazing concept. Um, by the way, in case you've forgotten, as you're watching today, Joan does have her information available on her website. It's jrdstudio.artspan.com. And also, you can find information about Joan on the blog, on the Center Stage Theater blog. Just go to the main website, centerstagetheater.org. Again, that's centerstagetheater.org, and click on the blog tab, and that'll take you to the Digital Arts Festival page. And you can learn more about Joan there on the blog as well. So, Joan, let me ask you, who are your mentors, or who inspires you the most?
Uh, there are several artists that inspire me. Everyone from Miro to Calder, but especially in clay. There was the reason I went to Cranbrook was I wanted to study with this very special artist. His name is Richard DeBoer, and he's in many, many, many fine collections and museums all over the world. And he would make vessel forms that were so thin and graceful and elegant that I really, really could relate to. So that's why I went to Cranbrook to study with. And that summer, he called me and said, Joan, I just accepted another position in Colorado. So my teacher ended up being June Kaneko, which wasn't too shabby. He was a wonderful, wonderful person, very inspiring. And the person whose work I love the most is Ruth Duckworth. She was a sculptor working in white porcelain. Her forms are curvy and elegant and gorgeous, and she's one of the most special people in the world. She just passed away a couple of years ago. So I would say those were my main inspirations. And my other inspiration, whose work I love, is I had no idea when I made my first trip to Japan that they were all doing my aesthetic. I had no idea what Japanese clay was. I had never seen it. I was totally naive. I went there in the 60s and I said, oh my gosh, everybody's doing my work. So I do really relate to the Japanese sense of aesthetics.
Oh, wow. Well, that's amazing. So I understand that you have some new commissioned work. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I would love to, but I just want to tell you one little short thing. Do we have time?
Yes, we have a few more minutes.
Okay. I did a wonderful collaboration with the poets here in Santa Barbara. I did not know the poets, but I got a list of the really hot poets, and I wanted to do a porcelain book. And on each page, let's back up. I sent them an email and said I want to do a porcelain book of poems. I'm working on the theme of the edge. Can you send me a short poem? And I got more poems. It took me days just to figure out which poems I would use. And then I made the whole porcelain book, thin pages, and a big, thick, juicy black porcelain cover, very sculptural. And then the poets came to my studio who I'd never met. And they said, but if people turn the pages, they're going to break the book. So then I had to make a cardboard book, and they built a pedestal. So the main book was on the top of the pedestal in a vitrine, and the cardboard book was on a little shelf that was interactive with all the same poems, and that's how we resolved it. So it's just so much fun to collaborate with people that aren't even in your field.
That's amazing. That is really cool that you had that opportunity to work with poets in that manner. That's wow. Well, I mean, I love the whole idea of meshing the two art forms together. That's really neat. That's really
And
cool.
one other quick thing is I worked with
Sure.
a painter here in Santa Barbara, and I did the forms, and all we did was talk about a concept, which was the city of Santa Barbara, what we see. It was like a cityscape. And we set a certain palette for each one, like let's do greens and blues or pinks and yellows and greens. And I would work on a form and he would bring a painting. They were all dimensional paintings. They weren't paintings on a wall. One was a flower box, and I gave him a sculpture with wire poking out, and I said, this is our flower box, make me flowers. He went to the studio. His name is Francis Scorzelli. He's here in Santa Barbara. And he painted all these individual cut out shapes of these flowers and came back, and we put together, and it was like dynamite. Every piece we did was magical. He worked in his studio, me and mine. We had a common mindset, but we never worked together. We never talked about the pieces. So collaborations can happen in magical ways.
That's wonderful. We only have a couple of minutes left, but quickly tell me about the blog Splat Clay on the Wall. I was curious what that was about.
Well, it was my vision of how was I going to put clay on the wall. I started throwing clay on my wall because I wanted to do wall pieces until it finally evolved. So that was the name of the blog. And the last thing I'll leave you with is this wonderful commission that I just did for Reaching Cruise Lines on their new Splendor. It's a ship that shows just the finest art. And I have 2 porcelain panels lining each side of the main hallway. And they were inspired by a dance group that came here to Santa Barbara, and a Japanese group that did a dance called Maguri, the land and the sea. And that was the piece. They're 6 feet long by 4 feet wide, and I was thrilled, and I want to do more like that.
Oh, that's amazing. Wow, what an amazing experience that must have been for you. That's wonderful. And I wish we could talk more. I could listen to you talk about your art, all day if we had the time, but unfortunately we're just about out of time. But before we go, I just want to give everyone your information one more time. Again, to learn more about Joan, you can go to her website, jrdstudio.artspan.com. Again, that's jrdstudio.artspan.com. To learn more about Center Stage, go to their website, centerstagetheater.org. And for the Digital Arts Festival, click on the blog on the Center Stage website there on the homepage. And if you'd like to learn more about me, you can find me on social media on Facebook and Instagram at Jim on the Air. Thank you so much for joining us today, and thank you for watching, and we'll catch you next time. Bye-bye, everybody.